The house at the edge of the map. I grew up in a small New England town where people whispered about an old, crumbling house that supposedly didn't exist. Everyone knew where it was, but if you asked for an address, nobody could give you one. It wasn't on Google Maps. Not on property records. Not even on old hand-drawn maps of the area. Kids called it the house at the edge of the map. You could only find it if you weren't looking for it. That's how the stories went. Walk long enough into the woods behind Miller's Creek, and if the air felt off, if the silence pressed too heavy against your ears, you might stumble into the clearing where the house sat crooked, like the earth itself was rejecting it. I never believed in that crap. Until last year. 1. The dare. It started stupidly, like these things always do. My friend Kyle dared me to go find the house. We were both 23, bored, still stuck in our dying hometown after college hadn't panned out the way we wanted. "Bet you won't go in," he said, smirking over his beer. I told him I'd do it. Not just go, but spend the night. Record it. Prove the house was just a rundown shack and not some cursed void. I packed a flashlight, my phone, a power bank, and a flask of whiskey for courage. I didn't tell anyone else where I was going. 2. The path. The woods behind Miller's Creek were dense, swampy, and crooked with fallen trees. I walked for hours and got nothing but mosquito bites and mud up to my shins. But then, around sunset, I noticed the quiet. No birds. No frogs. No crickets. Not even the sound of the creek. Just a heavy stillness that made me suddenly aware of my own heartbeat. That's when I saw the clearing. The house leaned forward like it had grown tired of holding itself up. 3 stories high, its black windows gaped like eye sockets. The roof sagged, but not in a natural, weathered way. It looked wrong. Off balance, as if the angles weren't meant for human eyes. 3. Inside. The door groaned when I pushed it open. The air smelled like wet earth and iron. Inside, the walls pulsed faintly. Not literally moving, but when I turned my head, I could have sworn they had shifted closer. Dust covered everything, but there were no cobwebs. No animal droppings. No signs of life at all. I set my flashlight on a broken dresser and started filming. My phone's clock read 8:17 p.m. I explored the first floor, a kitchen with rusted pots, a dining room with a table too long for the space, chairs stacked on top of each other like they'd been abandoned mid-ritual. But the strangest thing was the mirrors. Every room had one, tall and thin, framed in tarnished silver. They weren't cracked, but the reflections didn't match reality. Sometimes I saw the room as it was, empty, rotting. Other times, I saw myself moving a half second too late. Once, I caught sight of someone else standing behind me. When I whipped around, no one was there. 4. The upstairs. The staircase was narrow, the steps oddly tall, like they weren't built for human feet. Each one creaked loud enough to wake the dead. The second floor was lined with doors, but most of them opened into bricked-up walls. Some opened into nothing, just blackness, as if the house was hollow there. At the end of the hall was a child's room. Toys scattered across the floor, none of them familiar brands. Wooden dolls with no faces. Stuffed animals with too many legs. My phone buzzed in my pocket. No bars. Still, a notification had appeared. 8:17 p.m., you should leave. I laughed nervously and turned off the screen. But when I glanced at the mirror in the corner, my reflection was still staring down at the phone. And smiling. 5. The third floor. By then, I wanted to leave. But my pride, and the whiskey, kept me going. The third floor was different. Warmer. Like someone still lived there. The walls weren't decayed, the wood wasn't rotting. There was even a faint smell of flowers. I found a study with books stacked high, none of them with titles I recognized. Some weren't even in English. The pages looked handwritten, ink so dark it almost shimmered. One book lay open on the desk. I swear it hadn't been there a moment ago. The page read, "You will stay until the house forgets you. Or until it remembers who you are." I slammed it shut. That's when I heard footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Coming up the stairs behind me. 6. The descent. I ran. My flashlight flickered violently, shadows lurching across the walls. The mirrors in the hallway showed crowds of people watching me, their faces pale blurs. I hit the stairs, but they seemed longer now. No matter how many I took, the first floor didn't come. My legs burned, my lungs screamed, but the house stretched, pulling me deeper. Finally, I stumbled into the kitchen. Except it wasn't the same kitchen. The table was set. Candles burned low. Rotten food twitched on the plates like it was still alive. And there were people at the table. Figures, gaunt and gray, their mouths sewn shut. They turned their heads toward me in unison. 7. The exit. I bolted for the door. When I burst into the clearing, the night air hit me so hard I collapsed to my knees. The house behind me looked different, smaller, almost innocent. Just a ruin. My phone said 8:17 p.m. The same as when I'd entered. I walked home in shock. Didn't sleep. Didn't talk to anyone. The next morning, Kyle came over, demanding proof. I showed him the video. But the footage was only 30 seconds long. Just me entering the door. No inside. No mirrors. No whispers. Just darkness. At the end, the camera pointed at my face. And my reflection in my phone screen. It smiled. 8, now. That was a year ago. Since then, I can't find the house again. No matter how hard I look. But the mirrors in my apartment sometimes don't line up. My reflection lags. Smiles at things I don't. And every night, at exactly 8:17 p.m., my phone buzzes with the same notification. You should leave. The problem is, I don't think it means my apartment. I think it means my world. It's been a year since that night, and I've done everything I could to forget. But the house won't let me. 1. The return of 8:17. The notifications never stopped. Every night, without fail, 8:17 p.m., you should leave. I changed phones. Numbers. Even got a burner. It didn't matter. The messages appeared anyway. Sometimes they were push notifications. Sometimes they scrolled across my alarm clock, even though it wasn't a smart device. Once, I found the word scratched into my bathroom mirror with a fingertip that wasn't mine. But the worst part? When the clock hit 8:17, the world shifted. It's subtle, but the air feels denser. Shadows seem to lean closer. And if I'm near a mirror, I don't look. I can't. Because my reflection is always already watching me. 2. Obsession. I tried to convince myself I'd hallucinated that night. Stress, alcohol, a bad trip. But I couldn't let it go. So I started researching. The town library had nothing. But in the basement, behind a locked door labeled Archive, not for public use, I found a box. Yellowed papers, brittle maps, handwritten journals. Most of the documents referenced the Hollow House. Never the house at the edge of the map. But the descriptions matched perfectly. A structure that appeared where no road led. A building that rearranged itself. A place people entered and were not the same after. One journal entry, dated 1912, chilled me. Every evening at the same time, the house chooses. It keeps those it wants. The rest are sent back, marked. I didn't want to admit what I knew deep down, I hadn't escaped. I'd been marked. 3. Kyle's disappearance. I told Kyle about the archive. He laughed it off like always. Bro, you're obsessed. Just let it go. You spent one night in a meth shack and now you're writing creepypastas. But a week later, Kyle vanished. No note. No signs of struggle. His car was in his driveway, keys still inside. His phone stopped working at, you guessed it, 8:17 p.m. I couldn't prove anything. But I knew. The house had taken him. And the guilt ate me alive, because it had been my story, my dare, that dragged him into this. 4. The maps. I started studying maps obsessively. Not Google Maps, it never showed the house. I bought old survey maps, county plats, even Native American drawings of the region. And I noticed something strange. Every single map, even the hand-drawn ones, had a blank patch of forest near Miller's Creek. Sometimes it was an unmarked clearing. Sometimes just smudged ink. Sometimes literally cut out of the paper. It was always in the same spot. Like the cartographers couldn't bring themselves to draw what was there. Or maybe, something wouldn't let them. 5. The message. 2 months ago, the notifications changed. Instead of just, you should leave, one night I saw this. 8:17 p.m., you left something inside. I dropped my phone. I wanted to smash it, burn it, run. But deep down, I knew what it meant. The house hadn't finished with me. It still had a piece of me inside. 6. The return. I swore I'd never go back. But the longer I waited, the worse it got. My reflection lingered too long. My shadows bent at wrong angles. At night, I heard footsteps in my apartment, but no one was there. And every day, I felt less real. Like my edges were blurring. Like I was becoming one of the pale, silent figures at the house's table. So I made a choice. I packed a bag, grabbed 3 flashlights, extra batteries, and my grandfather's old revolver. And I went back to Miller's Creek. 7. The second visit. It didn't take hours this time. The woods folded around me, guiding me like a funnel. Within minutes, I was in the clearing again. The house looked exactly the same. Tilted. Waiting. The air pressed against me, thick and metallic. When I stepped inside, the walls seemed to sigh. 8. The house remembers. Everything was different. The mirrors weren't dusty anymore. They gleamed. And in every one, I wasn't alone. Dozens of versions of me stared back, older, younger, bleeding, burning, screaming. Some grinned with sewn lips. The kitchen was spotless now, the long table set with fresh food. Steam rose from platters. The pale figures sat in their chairs again, only this time, their mouths weren't sewn shut. They whispered in a language that hurt to hear, like glass grinding in my skull. I ran upstairs. The second-floor doors weren't bricked up anymore. They opened into endless corridors, staircases looping back into themselves, rooms that shouldn't exist. And the child's room? Gone. In its place was a nursery of cribs filled with writhing, faceless things. I didn't stop. I climbed to the 3rd floor. 9. The study again. The study was exactly where I'd left it. The same desk. The same books. The same journal open on the table. Only now, the page had changed. You have come back. Good. We will remember you. Will you remember us? My flashlight flickered. In the reflection of its beam on the desk, I saw Kyle standing behind me. Except his face was wrong. His mouth stretched too wide. His eyes were nothing but hollow black pits. Leave, he croaked, his voice shredded like broken glass. Leave before it. Then he was gone. 10:8:17. I checked my phone. The time read 8:16 p.m. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped it. The house hummed around me, a low vibration in the floorboards. The mirrors rattled. The air grew heavy. When the clock struck 8:17, everything went silent. The lights in the house flared bright, but not from my flashlight. From the walls themselves. And then, the mirrors changed. They no longer showed me. They showed the world outside. My town. My street. My apartment. All of it empty. Silent. Lifeless. Like the house wasn't inside the world. Like the world was inside the house. 11. What I brought back. I don't remember leaving. One moment I was in the study, drowning in light. The next, I was back in my apartment, gasping, drenched in sweat. My phone still read 8:17 p.m. But nothing felt the same. The food in my fridge is always rotting, no matter how new. My friends don't answer calls anymore. My parents don't recognize my voice. And my reflection? It's not lagging anymore. It's faster. Sometimes, I see it move before I do. And last night, it pressed its palm against the glass. From the other side. 12. The final warning. The notification came again, just now. But it's not telling me to leave. It says, 8:17 p.m., you are already inside. I used to believe the house was just a cursed building. But after what happened the second time, I don't believe that anymore. The house isn't in the world. The house is the world. And I don't know how much longer I can pretend I'm still outside of it. 1. Fractures. After the second visit, I thought I'd gone mad. My apartment felt wrong. My street felt wrong. People looked through me like I wasn't really there. When I tried to leave town, I couldn't. I drove for hours, but every highway curved back. Every exit led to the same gas station, the same field, the same woods near Miller's Creek. And when I asked the cashier for directions, he just stared at me and said, "It's 8:17 somewhere." I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw myself sitting at that long dining table, whispering with the pale figures. 2. Kyle's return. 3 days later, Kyle came back. At least, something wearing Kyle's skin did. He knocked on my door at 8:17 p.m. Same hoodie, same stupid grin. But his eyes, they didn't blink in sync. His smile never faltered, not even when I screamed. "Dude," he said. His voice was layered, like several voices speaking at once. "Why didn't you stay? It's better inside." I slammed the door. But when I looked through the peephole, he was still there. Grinning. 4 hours. The next morning, when I dared open the door, he was gone. But muddy footprints led away from my apartment, and vanished into my bathroom mirror. 3. The diary. I went back to the archive, desperate. I broke into the restricted room again, and this time I dug deeper. I found a leather-bound diary from 1847. The handwriting was frantic, jagged. The entries described a group of settlers who found a manor not on any map while surveying land. They claimed the house spoke to them in dreams. Promised them safety, abundance, immortality. Most of them disappeared. One survivor wrote, "The house is not built. It is grown. It has roots deeper than earth. Each mirror is a window, each door a mouth. And when the clock strikes, it feeds." That night, I burned the diary in my sink. The flames spelled out 8:17 in the smoke. 4. Experiments. If I was trapped in some pocket reality, I needed proof. So I tried an experiment. I smashed every mirror in my apartment. For one glorious day, nothing happened. No reflections, no shadows moving wrong, no whispers. But the next evening, at 8:17, my TV turned on by itself. Static filled the screen, then cleared to show my own apartment, as if filmed through a hidden camera. Only it wasn't live. It showed me sleeping. And standing over me, in the corner of the room, was a tall figure with a face like stretched glass. I haven't slept since. 5. The man in the glass. He comes every night now. I don't see him directly. Only in reflections. Window panes, polished silverware, my phone screen. Sometimes he's close enough that I can feel his breath. Cold. Damp. Like the air in that house. And sometimes, he speaks. Not out loud, but in my head. Words that scrape like broken teeth. You were meant to stay. The house remembers. You are unfinished. 6. The plan. I decided to fight back. If the house feeds on recognition, on being remembered, then maybe I could starve it. I started forgetting. I stopped writing about it. Stopped researching. Stopped saying its name. For weeks, I refused to think of the house at all. And for a while, it worked. The notifications stopped. The reflections were normal. The air felt lighter. But then, at 8:17 one night, my phone buzzed again. You cannot forget what is inside you. 7. The collapse. Reality started breaking. Shadows lengthened even at noon. Time skipped, minutes vanishing without me noticing. Once, I blacked out while pouring coffee and woke up in the woods, mud up to my knees, my phone reading 8:17 p.m. again. My neighbors disappeared. Their apartment stood open, half-furnished, as if no one had ever lived there. And every mirror in town began showing me. Dozens of me. Hundreds. Some rotting. Some screaming. Some grinning with eyes stitched shut. All of them waiting. 8. The third visit. Last night, I gave up. I went back. The clearing welcomed me. The house leaned forward, eager. Inside, it wasn't decayed or clean. It was alive. The walls pulsed with veins. The floors breathed. The air was thick with a heartbeat not my own. The dining table stretched into infinity, figures seated as far as I could see. At the head of the table sat something wearing my face. But older. Sharper. Hungrier. Sit, it said, and my legs obeyed. The figures whispered. The house trembled. And when the clock struck 8:17, I understood. I hadn't escaped at all. I'd only been walking through the house's corridors shaped like streets, like towns, like lives. There is no outside. We are all already inside. 9. Now. I don't know how much longer I can write this. My reflection is smiling wider now, teeth too long, too sharp. Every clock in my apartment is stuck on 8:17. And behind me, I can hear the long table being set. They are waiting for me to take my seat. And maybe tonight, I will. Because I don't think there's anywhere left to run.